I was just going to a wedding today, but to some, I'm still a threat. Not even a suit could change that. James Carter, 38, is a successful FBI agent. That morning, he put on his suit, glanced at himself in the mirror, and smiled. Because today, he wasn't just an agent, he was a cousin, a family man attending a wedding at an upscale hotel. He was there for love, not duty. But on this day meant for celebration, the shadow of prejudice dimmed every light. When he arrived, the hotel parking lot was full. He parked along the curb in a way that didn't block traffic. As soon as he turned off the engine, a patrol car pulled up beside him. A white officer stepped out and spoke coldly. "This area's off limits. Move your car." James nodded politely. "Just a few minutes. My cousin's wedding is inside. I'll be quick." The officer raised his voice. "What, you think you get special treatment? Move the damn car." James remained calm. "Of course, officer. I just need—" Suddenly the officer took a step forward and barked. "You're resisting a government official now? I feel threatened. Requesting backup." Before James could even understand what was happening, he was face down on the ground and handcuffed. Wedding guests began to gather, stunned. James whispered to himself, "Stay calm. Their masks are about to fall." James was swept away by the patrol car, his head down, but his mind was wide awake. As he walked away, he caught the confused looks of several family members in the distance. Confusion, anger, helplessness. The joy of the wedding was drowned out by the sound of sirens, and there was always a lingering doubt about what would happen to him. At the police station, James still hadn't identified himself. His FBI badge was in his jacket pocket, but he didn't use it, because James was part of an undercover internal operation investigating racist police behavior, fake arrests, and abuse of power. This incident was the latest item on that list. While the incident was heartbreaking, it was also an opportunity to find the culprits. Inside the police station, the officers dragged him into the interrogation room, manhandling him. They removed his jacket, emptied his pockets, and took his fingerprints. The questions came quickly and at a high pitch. "Why were you there? Why did you resist? Why did you shout?" James said nothing. In this case, silence was sharper than any accusation. Any word could be distorted, so he didn't give them anything, but he tried very hard to achieve it. Meanwhile, at the wedding venue, another kind of silence spread. James's cousin and the bride, along with the anxious guests, asked for the hotel's outside camera footage. The manager pulled out the security footage. The wedding cameraman had unknowingly filmed the entire encounter. James's wife Leah and his cousin began gathering the footage. Dozens of witnesses, multiple cameras. This was no longer about a parking violation. It was about a man forced into silence, standing up, quietly, against a system built to suppress him. When James chose silence, the cameras began to speak. The hotel's exterior security footage captured the incident from beginning to end. How James carefully parked his car, how he calmly explained himself to the officer, and how he never made any aggressive moves. It was all very clear. And it wasn't good news for the overbearing cop. Even the wedding videographer had unknowingly filmed the encounter. The audio in the clip reveals, police officer shouting at James, "Who do you think you are to challenge me?" James calmly and quietly responding, "I'm just here for a wedding." Then the officer's exaggerated outburst, "I feel threatened. I need backup." Jasmine, James's wife, trembled as she watched the footage. But in that moment her fear turned to determination. It wasn't just about her husband. It was about every voice that had been silenced. The videos went viral on social media. Within hours, the hashtag #Justice for James was trending. Thousands of people rallied behind one message. A man going to a wedding should not be treated like a criminal because of his parking space. Fix the system now. FBI officials stepped in. An internal investigation was launched. News reached the upper ranks that James was part of an undercover operation. But still, James said nothing. He was committed to exposing the rot festering in the deepest corners of the system. The local district attorney filed charges against the officer, abuse of authority, false reporting, and misconduct with racial bias. James remained on duty, but now his courtroom was the battlefield, and his weapons were truth, evidence, and unshakable resolve. There wasn't a single empty seat in the courtroom. Journalists, civil rights advocates, law students, and everyday citizens packed in to witness how a simple parking dispute had unraveled a deeper, darker truth about the system. The officer sat on the defendant's bench, quieter than he had ever been. His lawyer by his side, a wall of paperwork in front of him. But his eyes showed not regret, but resentment. The prosecutor presented the evidence to the jury. First, the hotel's surveillance footage. Then, the audio from the wedding video echoed through the courtroom. The room remained silent as every frame exposed James not as a threat, but as a man of extraordinary restraint and patience. Then, James was called to the witness stand. For the first time, he spoke. All eyes turned to him. "I'm James Carter, an FBI agent. But that day, I chose to stay silent. Because sometimes, the masks only fall when you do." A hush fell over the courtroom as he continued. "That day, I was handcuffed, not for what I did, but for what I looked like. I wasn't a suspect. I was a cousin attending a wedding. But it wasn't my actions that were judged. It was my skin." The prosecutor turned to the officer and asked just one question. "Did you see a threat in that footage?" The officer couldn't answer. He lowered his head in silence. The jury withdrew to deliberate. Outside, people were still gathered. On social media, the call for justice kept growing louder. James whispered only one thing to himself. "This case isn't just mine anymore. It has become the voice of everyone who was ever silenced." The crowd gathered outside the courthouse that morning was silent, yet tension hung thick in the air. Inside, the jury had taken their seats. The judge re-entered the courtroom. Everyone stood. James adjusted his jacket, his eyes calm, yet tired. This wasn't just another case for him. It was the first time the system was being forced to look into a mirror held up by conscience. The jury foreperson stood, unfolded the paper, and read aloud with crystal clarity. "The defendant is found guilty of abuse of authority and making false statements. Immediate dismissal is recommended by the Department of Internal Affairs." No one applauded, but many took a long, collective breath. This verdict didn't just clear one man's name. It cracked open the door to questioning an entire system. The judge followed with a statement. "This case is more than a civil rights violation. It's a reminder of what justice truly means. Not protecting the powerful, but defending the right." James stood. For a moment, he looked around the courtroom. As the lights from the cameras turned to him, he spoke. His voice rang clear. "I'm an FBI agent. But that day, I chose not to show my badge. Because in a city where your identity doesn't protect you, the problem isn't who you are. It's what the system has become." His words shattered the heavy silence. The speech was streamed live across social media. The hashtags number #UnArmed but profiled and number Speak for James shot to the top of global trends. Thousands saw themselves in James's truth. A few days later, James returned to the same wedding venue parking lot. He parked in the exact same spot. This time, there were no cameras, no lawyers, no supporters. Just a man walking freely through the streets of his city. He turned back to the camera and smiled. Because sometimes, the truest justice comes not from shouting, but from never giving up on what's right, even when no one is watching.